How's it going, you busy bunch of bakers? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're making yogurt naan and butter chicken curry. So let's get in the kitchen and get started. One of the earliest videos on this channel was for a naan recipe. Now it's time to update it and improve it. To go along with these delicious flatbreads, we'll also make a chicken curry. You can totally adjust this recipe to your taste. Swap the spices, use different proteins, make it vegetarian or even vegan. You'll find notes about it in the written recipe below. For now, let's get on with it. Let me show you how it's made. Starting with the ingredients for the naan. We'll need some white bread flour, yeast, salt, sugar, a little bit of oil, and yogurt. You could also use buttermilk instead of the yogurt. As soon as the bread comes out of the pan, we'll brush it with a garlic and herb butter. For that, we'll need some butter and salt, or simply salted butter. We'll need some garlic and some chopped coriander, or cilantro, for my American friends. As for the curry, we'll need some butter, onions, garlic, ginger, cashew nuts, tomatoes, cardamom seeds, cloves, mild chili powder, garam masala, bay leaves, cinnamon, salt, ground coriander, and a protein of your choice. I'm going to use chicken breast. As a finishing touch, we'll add some double cream and some chopped fresh coriander. You can easily turn this into a vegan dish by swapping the butter, the double cream, and the protein for some other plant-based options. As for the bread dough, you can use coconut yogurt instead of dairy yogurt. And for the garlic butter, simply swap the fat for a plant-based option. And speaking of garlic butter, that's a quick thing to do, so that'll be the first thing we'll get out of the way. In a small bowl, combine the coriander, the garlic, the butter, and the salt. Mix until smooth, and then leave on the side for later. But do not refrigerate it. We need this to be soft for brushing. Next up, let's make the curry base. In a medium-sized pan, add the butter, and place it on medium to high heat. Let the butter melt. Once it's melted, add the onions, the garlic, and the ginger. Give it all a good mix, and then leave to cook for around 5 minutes. We need to round off the harsh flavors of these ingredients and get some sweetness out of them. So keep cooking this mix until it becomes nicely golden brown. As with almost any food, color equals flavor. Once everything's nicely golden brown, we can add the other ingredients. The spices, the salt, the tomatoes, and the cashew nuts. And also give it a splash of water. We'll be cooking this mix for another 10 minutes, so it can't get too dry. Also, this is only the curry base. We're not adding the chicken, the double cream, or the coriander quite yet. We will cook this mix, leave it to cool down, and then blend it until it's smooth. This is kind of what Indians call a base gravy. From this base, you can make many different curries. Usually the base gravy will contain fewer spices, so you would have more freedom and variety when adjusting the flavor for the final curry. Of course, we are only making the one, so I wanted to keep it simple and added all the ingredients at once. It's been about 10 minutes, the curry base is nice and thick. I'm going to transfer it to my NutriBullet cup and leave it to cool down. And once it's cooled down a bit, I'll blend it to a smooth paste. If you don't own a blender, make sure you grind the spices before you use them in the sauce. And chop all the other ingredients nice and small before you make the sauce. But this paste will definitely turn out best when you blend it. All the flavors get to mingle really well, and the texture is so smooth and creamy. You can leave this on the side if you're going to use it on the same day, or refrigerate it until whenever you're ready. Let's move on to making the dough. My kitchen is around 22 degrees Celsius or 72 degrees Fahrenheit, so I left the yogurt out to come up to room temperature. In a large bowl, combine the yogurt, the yeast, the salt, the sugar, and the oil. Then give it a good mix. You want to dissolve the salt, the yeast, and the sugar completely. Finally, add the flour and mix to a dough. And before you say anything, I know naan is not made with bread flour, usually. That's all I have at home, and it doesn't matter. To compensate, we've increased the hydration of this bread to 80%. So you just have to work with what you have. And don't worry too much about the ingredients. It is the method that makes the bread. Once your dough is fully mixed, place it in a clean bowl and give it a quick temperature check. Mine turned out a little bit cooler than I expected, but of course it's going to rise without any problems anyway. We're keeping this recipe super simple, and we're not folding it during bulk fermentation. So cover up the dough, leave it to ferment for an hour and a half to 2 hours. During this time it should puff up nice and big. If it doesn't look like this, leave it for a bit longer. After bulk fermentation, weigh your dough ball and divide it into 6 equal pieces. Of course, if you want slightly smaller breads, you can do 8. Or if you're using a large pan, you want a big naan, you can divide it into 4. But no matter how many pieces you decide to make, after dividing, we need to do some shaping. Take a piece of dough, flatten it out slightly, then fold the edge over the middle, go around a circle to reach point where you started. Then turn the smooth side up, tighten it against the table, that's your dough ball done. This dough is just slightly sticky. I did not use any flour, used a light touch and quick hands for shaping. But if it is a bit too sticky for you, you can use a little bit of flour to help you out. dust the dough balls with flour, cover them up so the cling film doesn't stick to them, and leave them to proof for 30 minutes. Now we can perform the final shaping. Take a dough ball, dust it with flour, bring your rolling pin, and some cumin seeds, which are optional, but they add a really nice flavor. Sprinkle the seeds onto the dough and onto the table before starting to roll it out. Alternatively, you could have just mixed the seeds into the dough. Quite often you'll see naan that is shaped kind of like a bicycle seat. I'm not quite sure how this shape is achieved. I simply rolled the top part straight out and the bottom part to either side. And then I finished stretching it out by hand. What shape you give your flatbread doesn't really matter. It's not going to change the taste of it. Poking the flatbread with a fork will prevent it from puffing up too much as it cooks. You can also use one of those pastry docking wheels. I will not use any oil in the pan. That's why I'm brushing the flatbreads on both sides before cooking them, which also allows them to be stacked on top of each other without sticking together. Use a neutral tasting oil, like vegetable oil. But of course, if you want to add a certain flavor, you can use any oil that you like. In fact, clarified butter or ghee would be a great option for this. I'll leave those decisions up to you. Here all the dough has been prepared, stacked up, it's ready for the pan. Whilst I'm cooking the flatbreads, I'll also cook my protein. I will bake the chicken in the oven with some olive oil, salt and pepper, as simple as that. You can of course elaborate 1,000 different ways. Use anything else instead of chicken, or use some type of marinade and cook it in a different way. You'll be the one eating it, so make it yours. Right, with the chicken in the oven, let's start cooking these flatbreads. Lay the dough down in a hot pan on medium to high heat, and then flipping every 20 to 30 seconds, cook the flatbread for a total of 3 minutes. If it's trying to puff up, press it down using a spatula. If your pan is large enough, you can cook 2 flatbreads at a time. It's important to keep flipping them every 20 to 30 seconds to make them cook nice and evenly throughout without developing too much color. If they are getting too dark too soon, you want to turn the heat down. Place the pan on one side, leave it to cool down a bit, and then continue with the rest of the flatbreads. As soon as the flatbread comes out of the pan, brush it generously with a herby butter. Stack them on top of each other to keep them moist and warm. You do not need to cover them, at least if you're not keeping them for later, which you shouldn't. They should be cooked and eaten right away. That's when they are best. Alright, let's finish off this curry. My chicken is fully cooked. I'm going to put my curry base back into a pot, add a little splash of double cream and the chicken to it, and then place it on medium heat for a few minutes to heat it through properly. And now you can see how this curry base could be very versatile. You simply need to reheat it with any additional ingredients that you like. I kept it very simple this time. The sauce carries enough flavor and texture by itself. The chicken is just there to meet my protein needs for the day. The double cream rounds off the flavor of the base and also adjusts the consistency, making it slightly runnier. But there you have it. That's how you make soft and delicate garlic naan and a delicious creamy chicken curry. It's very easy, very simple, just how I like it. And the result speaks for itself. Great food doesn't have to be difficult to make. Of course, this isn't what you would call authentic, but I could not care less. This is absolute deliciousness. If you are interested in more flatbread recipes, I've got a whole playlist of flatbreads on my channel, so check it out. That is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.